now say that instead of just launching one at a time, you launch like 100 in workflow instances. If you come here to options and show instances, this is actually only limited to show, I think, like the top 20 or 25 workflow instances. But say that you launched 100, then it's only going to show the top 25. What we would need to do to figure out and start troubleshooting some of those instances is going to be within the workflow logs.
Okay.
So once you come to workflow logs, it'll give you basically every instance, or give you the option to query for every instance that of the workflow instances that the corp or the customer has ran. As you can see, it shows these instances that I have ran here, but you can see that you can select the workflow that you want to query for. So in this case, I want to look for my customer's workflow. You can also query by the status of the workflow. So you can say, I just want the failed ones, and then you can specify a date range, the beginning date and the end date of how much you want to query by. So say, for example, I don't care what happened in like May 19th. So I want everything after May 24th. So if I search that, it'll only give me the ones that are within my date range, the ones that have failed, and the ones that are for this customer. Well, this is great. You can still query for a pretty specific narrow range of workflows. But what if I launched 100 of them and they all failed and they were all ran on the same day? You're going to have hundreds of these, right? So you can paginate them to look at different pages if there are a lot of workflow logs. But there's also, if you press this down caret arrow here, you're able to even specify even more of what you want. So say, for example, there's this triggered data here, right? In this triggered data, what you can do is you can pass in a string or a phrase that would be able to be queryable based on what the triggered data came back as. And what I mean by that is trigger data of, so if you go back to the customers, the trigger data would be the data that came back from the trigger here. So you can pass in anything from here to try to query for the exact one that you're looking for. Okay. So for example, let's say I want to search by this phone number. Okay. I come back here and then I pass it into the trigger data. Okay. It should still give me all three because all three of these instances are for the same trigger. Okay. Just to show you that this is working as intended, I'm going to increase the date range, take the status off, and then search. And you can see these were all the instances for this phone number. Okay. I remember there was one with the name of Jim. Okay. And I searched for Jim, and then these were the instances for Jim. So this gives you a little bit more narrow ability or query ability to get the data that you want based on the instances that you ran. There's a few more options here. You can see if it was a step failure, meaning did it fail on a certain step, if it did or not. You can also see if it was forced completed, meaning remember that mark success that you can do. You can also see if it was marked as success. And then manually launch, you can see if it was manually launched or if the trigger automatically ran and it was, the workflow was activated and automatically ran. You can you can query for that as well. You can also query for it if it has been relaunched. So you can, the instances where the workflow has failed and in the actions, it gives you the option to relaunch it. Then all of those relaunched workflows would show up if you have this checked. So just to go over these two, the manually launch is going to be this option here. So anything that launches from here will show up with that filter. And then relaunch is, remember, like if something has failed, or even if it didn't fail, if you go to actions, there's a relaunch button. Relaunch would relaunch the whole thing from the start again. So if you press relaunch, it tells you, warning, there can be duplicates because you're relaunching the instance again. You can relaunch it and then it'll run. But then if you go to relaunch, set this to true, then it would only give me the ones that have relaunched. And this stack icon here shows that it was relaunched. And this person with the cog icon here shows that it was manually launched. So that's how you can kind of see that.
Okay, great.
Last but not least, there's an error message field. Basically, the error message field is, remember, you get this error, right? You can also search by the error that you get. So say that you want to get back all of the ones that have the unauthorized error, then you can do a search for that, and it'll give you all the ones that gave you the unauthorized error. So this is your kind of best friend when you want to figure out, and troubleshoot the instances that you ran, the failures that you have based on, launching a lot of workflows. You can, just to go over this again, you can search for the specific workflow. If not, you can just search for all of it by leaving it blank.
Okay.
Same for status, and then the date, and then trigger data. You can put any data that it would be part of the trigger that you would want to search by, and then it'll give you that data here. So if I just do nothing, and that will basically give me back everything.
Okay.
That's why it's taking quite a bit, because it's looking through like every table in the database and figuring out, looking through all of these workflows and stuff like that.